welcome here. It's Christine again with another amazing interview with people in the co-living industry. I'm actually the founder of Kndrd Quarters and also published the Co-Living Code. And I just love taking the time to talk with people in this industry from around the world. Kalle is actually over in Lisbon, Portugal, which I've actually been there. I was there recently in December. So he'll tell us all about the platform. He's actually the product lead for Nomadx. And so let's go ahead and just spend a couple minutes, if you don't mind, telling us about the platform, what you guys do, and how you guys place, digital nomads in different housing locations there in Lisbon.
Yeah, so we've been working on a platform that's a little bit different from all the other co-living concepts that are out there. Most co-living spaces, they rent a big space and they run it mostly like a hotel, and they have a working area and they have all these things. But in all its essence, co-living is really just living with other like-minded people in an environment that has, ability to work and good internet and all these things that kind of come with it. And we're basically trying to take a different approach to that and seeing, okay, can we provide those things, but not just like get one big space and do it that way. And the way we're actually doing that is here in Lisbon right now, there's a lot of nomads coming through, but there are also a lot of expats or nomads that are staying here for a longer period of time. And they have long-term leases and they have access to the long-term rental market. And some of them actually has a bunch of spare rooms that they're not renting out. They don't need to, and the rent is here relatively cheap. But they still want to meet other locals and have like a throughput of interesting people. So we made a platform where we're only taking those spare rooms and putting them in one place so that nomads coming to the city that need midterm housing can just go on the platform and connect with other like-minded people and find housing that's more close to what I would say is co-living rather than student housing or an Airbnb, which is totally ridiculously crazy expensive relative to the value that people are getting here right now.
No, and that was exactly my next question. I'm sure you get it all the time. How is your platform different from Airbnb?
Yeah, well, so it's an interesting space because Airbnb is short-term rentals, right? So the way they basically manage risk is that, well, we're going to have a lot of tourists coming in and we're going to charge a premium for the ability to rent this out for shorter periods of time. And then that way they can kind of make up for the voids in between, right? So that means like 1 week we have a person here and then maybe there's a week where nobody living here, but all in all, it kind of makes up for the money that they need to spend on it. Now, long-term rental is a different story because there's these people, they have a much lower price, but they need to fill it out for as long as possible with as little voids as possible so that there is no money being lost, right? Now, midterms is a bit weird, which is what most nomads need, and that's what co-living really is like 1 to 6 months or 1 to 3 months. And it's a weird little middle ground where it's kind of hard to know where those are. So for Airbnbs, like you can, in many cities, you can find relatively affordable midterm rentals. But in places like Lisbon, it's like 1,500 euros a month when the locals are paying like 300 for a private room, right? Oh. So that discrepancy there is too much, and it's not something most nomads here are willing to pay. So we're trying to find a way of getting properties that aren't in the Airbnb market onto the kind of market and give people access to that.
Cool. And then do you guys do any sort of profiles for the homeowners or do they know who they're going to be living with, I guess, essentially? Is there any review process?
Absolutely, yeah. So with our MVP that we're launching actually next week again, because the original platform we had was pretty simple. It was a very simple listing site. There was some features like that built in, but we are really realizing that it's very, very important that people are trusting the people they're staying with and vice versa. So we're trying to encourage all people that are using the platform to fill out their profiles as much as possible. And I have a bunch of ideas in the back of my head how we can keep doing that and create the kind of trust that kind of needs to be in place if people want to rent out their space and actually live with somebody, right? Because these are, strangers, even though they're nomads and people coming to the city. And maybe we'll even add like some sort of credibility rating system Right now, we think of it much more closely to something like couch surfing, where it's very based on social capital and not so much about money. And we're trying to learn from them.
Nice. Okay, great. And then, so you guys started, when did the platform originally start?
Well, so you mean the actual web product that we have?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have the exact dates, but as far as I know, I kind of came on board after the first iteration of this product was built. There was some change in our organization and the way we decided to do things. So I kind of inherited a little bit, and then we started iterating on it since then. But I think the whole product and when we started building on it was like 6 months. And the original idea was actually at the start to see if we can take properties that were already in all these Facebook groups online and basically use the API to just feed them into our system and get people to come and claim them. That was the original idea. Then suddenly Cambridge Analytica happened, and we actually didn't have access to that data anymore. So we had to pivot our entire model, and which actually turned out to be a really good thing, because that's how we kind of got in more towards where we're now, when we realized that most people that were on the platform in the first place was local professionals who wanted to meet like-minded people. So actually that kind of forced us to finding a niche in the market that we originally weren't looking for.
Got it. And then that's my next question is, what is your guys' demographic of the people that, you know, the guests, I guess, that stay?
Yeah. Well, so Lisbon is a very interesting point right now, where it's just at a cusp of exploding. Like, a lot of people say that it's about to become like the new Barcelona, or like the like these big tourist cities. Right now it's at this really nice point where it's still very cheap. So you get a lot of these nomads traveling around. And I think most of the demographic we're looking at is like pretty good split between both girls and guys, from end 20s to early 30s. You can see people like in the end of their 30s as well.
And then is with Lisbon, is there safety worries at all? Like, or not really?
Are you thinking of safety for guests?
Yes, safety for guests, not the homeowners.
Yeah, well, that's something that I definitely have in the back of my head, but Lisbon and Portugal is one of the safest cities in the world. So it isn't, that's also why this platform is this is a great city for us to start in. Portugal is at this really interesting point, and people are generally not afraid of crime here in general. So obviously there's obviously a safety aspect to it, but currently the other options is like going on Facebook and messaging random people. So going to our site and having really good user profiles is going to be an upgrade no matter what.
No, you're exactly right. And I failed to mention that at the beginning. Your platform's beautiful. Like, I love it. It's really cool. So I'm excited for you guys. That's awesome. And then, so you talked about the evolution of kind of the software and the platform, and then you guys are doing a relaunch coming up soon, right?
Yes. So we're relaunching the 29th of August. So we should be on track for that. And right now we're just going through the app and cleaning up bugs and making sure that the major user flows are really polished. And then we're just going to get out in the world there again and see if we can get this some traction with this.
Awesome. And then are you guys going to expand to any other cities?
Well, we're already in Lisbon and Porto. So that's what we're going to launch with. We already have kind of hosts in those cities that we're talking to. We haven't set any dates or committed to any expansions to other cities, but the goal is definitely to go global with this, going to other big nomad hubs around the world. Exactly the speed of that, I'm not sure yet, but as soon as we feel like we've kind of been effective in Lisbon, then we'll work on being efficient and moving on to other cities.
And then how about your personal story? Like, how long have you traveled around the world a lot? Have you been a digital nomad yourself? Like, is that something you're personally passionate about?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been nomading around the world the last like 2.5 years, or if you count in like just general traveling, even before I started working, it's probably like 4 years now. And I've stayed at all the big co-living spaces around the world. And there's something really, really unique with the co-living kind of industry. And I think it hits a really interesting nerve with people like me, at least, that want to meet other like-minded people, ambitious and maybe doing freelancing or working remotely or starting their own business. It's a very unique sort of people that co-living attracts. And so I've been, since around like the summer last year, been very, very interested in kind of getting into this and start working within some companies. And I've been working on projects on my own in the co-living space until I came on board with Nomadx.
Awesome. No, and that's what's so great is that's how we talked originally. It was about software and just, you know, how do we create this amazing infrastructure and directory and kind of tie all of it together, because it's so disconnected right now and it's not, you know, and you're right, Airbnb is not the right solution, but half of us are using that as our back end. Just because there really isn't like the perfect solution, you know, other than coliving.com's amazing. And that's going to help a lot too. But just creating, I think putting the tech behind it is what everybody's waiting for. So that's why it was neat, you know, getting connected with you. It's like, oh, this is perfect. Like, you know exactly what this industry needs.
Yeah. I think there definitely is a lot of opportunity here. And I think that we are very early in the days of co-living. And it's almost like a wave like co-working. I honestly believe it's going to become that big. Exactly how it looks or what it's called, I'm not sure yet, but it's definitely hitting a nerve with people. I remember the thing that really got me interested in it was that when I went to school back in the days, I had this really great community. We all kind of went to the same school. We had our own building, and we all just hung out in the hallways and between classes and just did stuff together. And when I was done at school, I could just go to this space and I knew there were people there and we just did, and spontaneous kind of interactions happen. That doesn't seem to be the case unless you live in sort of a collective apartment sort of situation, or you have roommates, so it's a big house. That doesn't happen in modern Western society as far as I know. And especially, you know, where I come from in Norway, in Oslo, that's not the case. So when I encountered co-living, I just really enjoyed the fact that when I was working a lot, I was doing a lot of work and I just really wanted to do things. And I hadn't done a lot of like outbound connection with others to make sure stuff happened. There was still people there I can hang out with and talk about interesting things or watch a movie or do this and that. And there was always a throughput of new people. And I really, really love that. And I've seen so many people enjoy that. And I really want to kind of bring that into the world, because I think that there needs to be more of this.
No, that's great. You bring up a great topic. And actually somebody just recently, he did a presentation, I think it was at Freedom Fest. I saw his slide deck and it was about loneliness and how lonely people are becoming and how co-living can help solve that issue at hand. And so it's really exciting. I mean, and I think a lot of people don't realize that WeWork has been around for 10 years, like a decade. Like I think they think they exploded overnight, and it is not the case. They started 10 years ago. You know, I think it was called Green Desk or something. It wasn't even called WeWork, but, and I do think you're right. I think we're early. I mean, there's good things and bad things about being early to a market. But it's exciting. But I definitely, without a doubt, I think that co-working and co-living are just, you know, co-living is going to be that popular of a word where everybody knows what it means.
I hope so. And also, we should be open to the fact that it might even not be called co-living. There might be some sort of other iteration of this, and that's fine. I mean, I think the end goal is really what it achieves. But I think you're right about loneliness. And this is an interesting thing, because we are living in a more connected world. But there's a lot of data showing that people are more like at home and social media. If you work a lot, for example, you get also more isolated. There's something about the society that we built that has a tendency to lean towards isolation. I don't know why, but the Western society seems to be that. I don't know if I stayed a bunch of time in New York, for example, and people work a lot and they go home. In Oslo, for example, is a very modern society. In Norway, people do the same thing. They're tired after work and they go home and they're like one in their apartment that they might have a significant other, but it doesn't promote social interactions in a way that I really wish that it should. And there's a lot of studies showing that social interactions and people is what makes people the happiest. So yeah, I'm just very interested to see. I'm not one of those people that are like against technology and I think that's just going to be like horrible and it's just the end of the world. I don't think that's the case. I do think it's the case, though, that the way we do these things and achieve these kind of interactions are going to look very different in the future than they are today. And that's fine. We're just going to kind of roll with the punches. But yeah, I'm very excited about where things are going.
No, and I love that because I know it's so exciting to talk about this because I feel exact same way. I love technology. I love what it does. But you're right. Like it brings people together, but it still isolates them. So it's like, how do you bridge that gap between the two?
Yep.
And still, yeah. And I'm not this person that's like, oh, technology is horrible. Like, I love it. I think it's can be used for an amazing tool for life. But yeah. So it's just bridging those gaps and still creating, and I feel like we're shifting a little bit. I think people are finally realizing like we got too isolated. Now let's come back and try to be more social. And I think with these next generations coming up, not just millennials, but Gen Z, like I think they're realizing it. Like they grew up with a phone in their hand, it's like, like when they were born, they probably had a cell phone, a smartphone, but perfect. So let me see my other questions I had for you. These homes, so most of these homes, do any of them have like co-working space, or it's mostly the platforms mostly connecting them to like actual bedrooms?
Yeah, right now we don't really have much control, and I do want to find ways we can create more control towards these things in the future. In the start, we're just going to review every apartment and make sure that there's at least some space where people can sit and work and there's good internet. That's the only thing we care about. So when you sign up to our platform, if those things are the case, we're going to reject you and we're going to ask you to change it. And if not, you're not going to be able to be on the platform. Now, in the future, though, there might be other ways of doing this, right? We also played around with the idea of, for example, having our own space. We actually have one space that is kind of just one big apartment, a bunch of rooms that we're trying to turn into our kind of, I don't know what we would call it, but like our example of how the perfect co-living space should look. It is simply just an apartment with a bunch of rooms in it. We made sure there's desks in there. You have good power outlets. There's easy, good lighting and all that. So there are things we're trying out, and we do really want all these hosts to make sure that this is the case, and maybe we find some way of giving them access to maybe desks or just amenities that makes it easy for them to create an environment like that. Or maybe we just make it easy for them to kind of drop in on co-working spaces around the city. Lisbon currently has like 42 co-working spaces, I think. So I don't think there's a need really for more. Or maybe we partner up with apps like Croissant, which is like almost like a class pass for co-working spaces that's been very popular here in Lisbon. There's many ways around it, but our model is not really about kind of throwing a lot of money at it and charging a lot of price. We're going for the mid-range of the market, and therefore we got to think very differently.
And then that was my other question I forgot to ask earlier. What's the average length of stay on the platform? Is it like monthly? Is it 3? I know you're trying to for that like month to 6 months.
Yeah, 1 to 6 months is kind of where we position ourselves. What we see is the sweet spot is 1 to 3 months. Nomads are kind of elusive.
No, right?
People, here in the city, people have a tendency to just come and they go like, maybe I should stay a little bit longer, and then they do. It has a weird effect on people. I think Lisbon is very undervalued at the moment.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah, like because you said you love being there. How long have you been there, and what's your draw to that city?
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a weird journey because I've been traveling around doing this whole thing. Like a year ago, or a little bit over a year, 1.5 years ago, I was like, I do think there's some value in settling down somewhere. But I didn't know where, because there was no place where I really wanted to be. And so I made a spreadsheet on my computer where I made like a column for everything that I cared about in the city, and I weighted them differently. Some of them being like, how's the weather, how's, just like out life. It doesn't matter. It was just a bunch of these things. And then one of the things is like spontaneous human encounters. And what I mean by that is like, if I go out to a cafe or something, do I meet people that are interesting? Do they like invite me to things? Does stuff happen kind of spontaneously? And there's very few cities where that's the case, but Lisbon is a place where that happens every single day. And I have no idea why this is the case, but it happens everywhere. And the community here is really, really strong. There's a girl, it's a very good friend of mine named Rosanna Lopez, and she runs all the meetups here, and she's done a really, really good job of like creating like, you know, 1 or 2 meetups a week. Where just sometimes just going to a bar, other nights is comedy nights, all sorts of things that happen. And these, in the summer, there are at least 100 people there every single meetup. And in the winter, it stays the same, and the next summer it's just even more. So it's a steady increase. It's very interesting. And every single person that I've gotten to come here and say, you guys should check out Lisbon, they stay here. They come back, or a lot of them are nomads, so they travel away, obviously, but they all come back. I
Oh,
don't know
that
what.
is so cool. And Meetup's such a great platform. And I use that in Los Angeles for events,
Yeah.
just to get plugged in, quickly into communities and make friends. I think Meetup, what's funny is WeWork, I don't know if you knew that, WeWork bought them out, I think in November.
Oh,
So
really?
WeWork adds, yeah, I think it was like 80 million or something. It was a good exit for Meetup, that's for sure. But yeah, but it's a platform I've used for years, whether hosting my own events or going to events. It's probably the easiest thing to use.
Oh, for
Oh my
sure.
gosh, so she does 2 a week. That's impressive.
I think we can do more. It's crazy. That girl is a powerhouse. I don't know how she does it, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn a little bit. I like putting together events and stuff myself, and I'm just like looking at her, like taking notes, because she's just really good at it. So yeah, if you come to Lisbon, go to meetup.com and join the digital nomads meetups. They're really good.
Oh, cool. No, that's good. And it's great for you. And as the leader of hosting these events, you make friends even quicker, right? Because you're the
Yeah.
leader. So everybody comes up to you and introduces themselves. And so it's just that much quicker on making friends in a new city. Oh, that's cool. That's super cool too.
Yeah.
So Kalle, I know you already touched on it, but maybe just as my final question, I always like to ask, like, where do you really truly see like the future of this industry going? Like, where would you like to see it go?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, as I said, I really think there is some merit to this, and I think community and bringing people together is going to be a really interesting field going forward. As I said, I'm not sure exactly what the iteration of it looks like. I've been to meetups in New York where architects are talking about, could you build houses that are designed in a different way, where people have more communal areas, or people can change the sort of room types they have based on their life, and creating more community that way. That might be an interesting iteration. Maybe there is platforms like Nomadx where it brings more people together. There's like nodes that kind of bring people together more organically. Or maybe it's more of these co-living spaces like we see Rome, Outpost Club, all these interesting spaces that are creating these new ways of living and new ways of making the experience of living a lot more flexible and a lot more convenient than a lot of other options is right now. I don't know. I don't know what's going to sustain, but I know there is definitely something here, and there's real value to be had. And I'm ready to kind of jump on the ride and see where it takes us. Now I'm totally fine with the solution that we come up with not working. If that really doesn't provide the value that we need, that's fine. The market's going to tell us. I think there's definitely something here, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, and let's end on that point. That's perfect. The market will tell us, right? And that's the perfect reason to do something, is to build something that people will actually need and use.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree 110%. So I know you have a big relaunch coming up. Like you said, so you're like a week out from relaunching the platform?
Exactly a week.
Okay. So I appreciate you at least taking the time to do this interview, and we will definitely be in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime. Okay, bye.
See ya.